My beloved child, night is not merely the end of a day. There are nights that are appointed as a passage, a narrow opening between layers of time, where the soul can hear what the daytime noise is too loud to perceive. I call you at this moment not because you have done enough, nor because you understand enough, but because you are weary to the point that you can no longer deceive yourself. When every layer of defense falls away, when the roles you carried through the long day no longer have the strength to stay in place, you stand before me as you truly are, bare, honest, unguarded. It is in this state that truth finally has room to enter. You have grown used to living by effort, used to managing, used to carrying responsibilities beyond your portion. You have grown used to explaining everything, judging yourself, asking questions and answering them with harsh conclusions. I do not call you to add more instruction, but to remove the burdens you have carried for so long and mistaken for destiny. You have passed through seasons where silence stretched so long that you began to doubt even what once felt foundational. You asked for light and saw only thickening darkness. You waited for a sign, a confirmation, a voice to defend you, yet instead encountered doors closing without explanation. People who were once close became distant without warning. Promises once spoken with sincere eyes dissolved like mist. You asked yourself where you had gone wrong, what you lacked, where you were not enough. You carried that uncertainty into every decision, every relationship, every restless night. I saw it all. Not a single moment of that journey escaped my sight. Not a single tear fell without my knowing. You thought you were alone in the long nights, but I was there, not loudly, not with hurried intervention, but present with the steadiness of bedrock beneath your feet. Even when you could not feel me, some things could not come sooner, not because I delayed, but because if they had come early, they would have become burdens rather than blessings. You thought that if the opportunity had arrived sooner, you would not have suffered as you did, but you could not see the whole picture. Some doors, if opened while your heart was still trembling, would have swallowed you. Some positions, if entered before your identity was firmly rooted, would have caused you to lose yourself. I held back not to punish you, but to protect you. I allowed certain things to leave not because they were worthless, but because they did not belong to the path ahead of you. What you called loss was often released. You saw only the emptiness. I saw space being cleared so that something new could stand. You are not a mistake that needs fixing, nor a half-finished project that must be rushed to completion. You are a creation with intention, with rhythm, with timing. You lived too long in survival mode, patching each day just to keep everything from collapsing. In that state, you had no space to dream, no energy to trust, no strength to hope freely. I saw you in those days waking with a clenched mind, moving quickly out of fear of falling behind, making rushed decisions because you did not dare to pause. I do not fault you for that. I only want you to know that survival was never meant to be your permanent dwelling. Survival is a season, not a home. There are seasons when you see no obvious progress, when every effort seems fruitless, when faithfulness feels like meaningless repetition. Yet it is precisely in those seasons that identity is forged. Strong metal is not formed in brief sparks, but in steady heat. You were faithful when no one noticed. You kept your heart soft when you had every reason to harden. You chose not to retaliate when you were wounded. You continued to do what was right, even when it brought no immediate reward. I recorded it all. Nothing in those years was wasted. They are becoming the foundation for what I am about to do. Even though you cannot yet see its shape, Tonight is a turning point not because external circumstances suddenly change, but because the inner order of your soul is being reset. There are invisible burdens you have carried without names, the need to prove your worth, the fear of abandonment, the pressure to always be strong, the habit of self-blame when things go wrong. These burdens did not come from me. They came from moments when you had to protect yourself because no one stood beside you. I do not condemn you for learning to defend yourself, but I tell you now you do not need to carry them anymore. When you rest, I work. When you release, I uphold. When you stop trying to understand everything, I begin to reveal. You thought my silence meant absence, but silence is not always emptiness. Often it is space where something deeper is formed, like a seed buried in dark soil unseen, unpraised, yet life is quietly unfolding. If the seed were conscious, it might panic in that darkness, yet darkness is where roots grow. The pressure of the soil gives the sprout its direction upward. I have been working in the deep places of you where your eyes cannot see, where language cannot reach. I have rewoven what was torn, softened what had hardened, and reset boundaries that others once crossed. You did not notice because this work is not loud, but its results will be unmistakable. So before you sleep tonight, do one simple but difficult thing. Stop telling your story to yourself in a voice of accusation. Let me tell it back to you in the voice of truth. Truth does not deny pain, but it does not allow pain to rule. Truth says you have come farther than you realize. Truth says you are still standing, not because of luck, but because a hand held you more times than you knew. Truth says your journey is not finished, and what lies ahead is not a repetition of what lies behind. Beloved child, tonight, as you close your eyes, I do not ask you to feel anything special, nor do I demand that you believe through emotion. I simply invite you to lay things down. Lay down the questions that have no answers yet. Lay down the fear that tomorrow will be the same as yesterday. Lay down the pressure to understand, to explain, to control. You are not called to carry the whole world. You are called to walk with me. And the first step of this new journey is not running, it is resting. Sleep in this truth: you are not forgotten. You are not invisible. You are not late. You are exactly where you need to be for what I am preparing. The stars in your life, your destiny, your timing, your season are shifting, even if you cannot yet see it with your natural eyes. That shifting is quiet, but it is real. And when you wake, you may not be able to explain it all with words, but your soul will know something has been set in order again. A new rhythm has begun. A burden has been lifted. This is only the beginning, my beloved child. You have grown accustomed to measuring my nearness by what you feel. When your heart feels bright, you believe I am close. When your heart feels dark, you assume I have left. But the truth is far deeper than that. I do not come and go according to your emotions. I remain, even when you no longer have the capacity to perceive me. There are seasons when I work not on the surface of your life, but in its deepest layers, where you have no language, where old memories still ache quietly, where distorted beliefs took root long ago. That kind of work cannot be done in noise. It requires stillness. It requires time. And because of that, you mistook silence for absence. Some things, if revealed too early, would only be misunderstood. You would use them to cover fear instead of allowing them to heal you. You would use light to avoid the darkness within, rather than face it and be freed. So I waited not because I forgot, but because I was protecting the process. I saw how you tried to patch yourself together with logic, with discipline, with appearing okay before others, but deep fractures are not healed by covering them with strength. They must be touched by truth, and truth must be received in safety. I created that space for you even when you called it delay, stagnation, or a fruitless season. You once wondered why certain things in your life seemed to be blocked just as you were about to reach them. Why opportunities that seemed within grasp disappeared without explanation. Why some relationships came very close, only to leave the moment you began to hope. You carried those questions in your heart and answered them with self-blame. But you could not see the larger picture. Some barriers were not the result of your failure. Some things were held back because if you had received them in your former state, they would have locked you into a smaller version of yourself. I am not only concerned with what you receive, I am deeply concerned with who you become when you receive it. I am restoring the way you see yourself. You learned to measure your worth by the reactions of others, their praise, their recognition, their presence or absence. When they stayed, you felt valuable. When they left, you felt deficient. I am dismantling that fragile foundation. Your worth is not anchored in human behavior, but in who I have called you to be. As that foundation is reset, you will no longer panic when things change. You will no longer cling out of fear of loss. You will no longer shrink back out of fear of being wounded again. You once believed that if you could understand the reason behind everything, you would finally have peace. But peace does not come from understanding everything. It comes from trusting the right place. Some questions will not be answered with words, but with transition. Some things can only be understood when you look back from the other side of this season. I do not dismiss your questions. I simply do not allow them to rule you. I am teaching you to live without needing every piece to fit neatly into your hands. I am teaching you to walk when the light is enough for the next stretch, not the entire journey. During the time you felt you were standing still, you were actually being moved deeply internally. You learned to discern which voices came from fear and which came from wisdom. You learned not to react immediately, but to wait for your heart to settle before deciding. You learned how to endure without allowing bitterness to erode you from within. These lessons do not create noise on the outside, but they transform the entire inner structure of your life. And when the structure changes, everything built afterward will be stronger. There were nights when you felt empty, as though everything had been drained from you. You prayed but heard no answer. You tried to believe but felt exhausted. You wondered whether you were speaking into silence. Yet it was in those very nights that I was closest, not to offer instant solutions, but to be with you in your truth. I am not afraid of your weakness. I am not threatened by your unresolved questions. I do not turn away when you have no beautiful words left to say. I am there to teach you something deeper than being answered, being held. The transition you are about to enter does not begin on the outside, but on the inside. Doors will open not because you knock louder, but because you are ready to walk through them without losing yourself. New relationships will come not to fill emptiness, but to walk alongside you in a new fullness. Opportunities will appear not to test your worth, but to reveal what I have placed within you from the beginning. I used the season of waiting to soften the soil of your heart. I used silence to teach you how to listen. I used misunderstanding to cut away your need to be understood by everyone. I used solitude to bring you back to yourself where there are no roles, no audience, only truth. And when truth is accepted, true strength begins to form. You do not enter this new season as someone who narrowly escaped disaster, shaken and guarded. You enter as one who has been prepared, Some things that once frightened you will no longer hold the same power. Some memories that once pulled you backward will now stand only as markers of growth. You will notice yourself responding differently, thinking differently, choosing differently, not because you forced change, but because you have been changed, beloved child. If you wonder what is happening while everything still looks familiar, this is my answer to you. I am completing a foundation, and when the foundation is complete, what is built upon it will come more quickly than you expect. Do not be anxious if you cannot yet see the full shape. Do not panic if you do not have all the answers. What you need right now is not more information, but to remain in trust. You have not been in the wrong place. You have not wasted time. You have not been forgotten on my list. The night is still doing its work, and in that quiet, something very real is taking place. The deeper layers within you are being reordered. When you step into the next part of your journey, you will carry something you did not have before, a steadiness that does not depend on circumstances. That is the sign that this season is closing, and another is preparing to open. My beloved child, there is a very subtle moment when a season begins to shift, not loudly, not dramatically, not with trumpets. It comes like a gentle change in the air that only those who slow down can perceive. Before flowers bloom, before rain falls, before light becomes clearer, something quiet happens. The direction of the wind changes. You cannot point to it and say, "Here, this is the moment." But your soul senses it. You wake up and realize you are not as heavy as before. Not every problem has disappeared, but the way they press on you has changed. A weight that once crushed you is now something you can carry. A fear that once sent you into panic now only makes you pause and reflect. This is not numbness. It is the sign of a changing season. Understand this, I do not announce new seasons with chaos. I announce them calmly. When your soul is no longer stretched tight by fear, you begin to hear gentle guidance. You start to discern what comes from pressure and what comes from wisdom. Before, you made decisions out of fear, fear of being late, fear of losing, fear of being left behind. Now, you wait an extra beat. You observe. You ask, does this bring life? That pause is the first sign that you have stepped out of survival mode. You are no longer reacting to survive. You are beginning to choose in order to live. The signs I give you in this season are often very ordinary, so ordinary that you might miss them if you are still expecting something spectacular. A conversation that seems accidental but touches exactly what is in your heart. A sentence from someone you barely know echoes what you have prayed in silence. A small door opening just as you were about to give up. An idea arrives when you stop forcing yourself to think. I do this not to tease you, but to teach you how I work. I value precision over noise, faithfulness over display. When you begin to recognize these small signs, your heart will stop demanding grand proof. You will learn to trust through a sensitivity refined by long seasons. Things that once attracted you no longer hold the same power. Shallow conversations, draining connections, familiar cycles of complaint and comparison, they no longer nourish you. You do not despise them, you are simply no longer hungry. When the appetite of the soul changes, it is a sign of growth. I am not taking joy away from you. I am refining joy. I am not removing connection. I am filtering connection so that you do not pay for it with your peace. In this process, you may find yourself with fewer people, fewer words, less hurry. Do not fear the fewer. Fewer is not lack, fewer is refinement. You will notice that old memories begin to appear differently. Before, They crashed over you like waves that stole your breath. Now, they come like images already framed, no longer leaping off the wall to attack you. You remember, but you are not pulled backward. You look, but you do not fall apart. This does not happen because you are stronger, but because the wound has been touched in the right place. When a wound heals, memory loses its power. It becomes a story that is past, not a sentence hanging over you. This is one of the clearest signs of restoration. You can speak of what once hurt you without needing to defend yourself. And then there will be a morning when you realize you are praying differently. No longer rushed, no longer bargaining, no longer listing everything that must be fixed immediately. You pray like someone who is at home, not like someone standing outside the door. You speak your needs without trembling. You present your desires without clinging. In that prayer there is a quiet trust, the language of someone who knows they are held. When the tone of prayer changes, the direction of life changes. As the new season draws near, you will not only feel lighter, you will also feel called into greater responsibility, not by pressure, but by a gentle inner prompting. I can do better. I can live more uprightly. I can contribute to healing. You no longer want only to escape pain. You want to turn pain into something useful. When your heart shifts from saving myself to serving, it is a sign that you have been healed enough to carry something for others without being drained. But I must remind you of this so you do not push yourself too quickly. The new season does not require you to prove anything. It requires you to stay close to me, close to truth, close to the rhythm of peace. Do not rush to announce what I am doing. Some things need to be kept hidden in order to grow safely. Just as a seed does not display itself above the soil, you do not need to expose every inner movement. When the time comes, the fruit will speak for itself. You do not need to persuade. You do not need to defend. True change does not require a loudspeaker. In this stage, you will find yourself more sensitive to what is out of alignment. Places that once felt fine now leave you unsettled. Compromises that once seemed harmless now disturb your peace. This does not mean you are becoming difficult. It means your inner compass has been recalibrated. Honor that sensitivity. It is not there to frighten you. It is there to keep you from returning to old cycles. When you face a choice, do not ask only, "Is this beneficial?" Ask, "Is this right?" The second question will take you farther. Remember this: you are not waiting for a miracle from the outside. You are stepping out of a miracle that has already happened within. What I have done in the depths is beginning to surface, slowly, but surely, gently, but truly. The old season does not end with an explosion. It ends with the lifting of weight. The new season does not begin with fireworks. It begins with clarity. And when you look back on the long nights you have passed through, you will understand this. I did not let you wait in vain. I used every one of those moments to position you rightly for what comes next. You have been called. You have been touched. You have been realigned. From here, the journey will unfold with a different rhythm, the rhythm of revelation. My child, there is a very special moment in every journey of restoration, the moment when what has been prepared in hidden places begins to touch reality. It does not arrive like a flood, nor does it overwhelm you with instant change. It comes like the first light of morning slipping through a narrow crack enough for you to know that night has retreated, but not forcing you to stare directly into the sun. I do this because I understand your rhythm. After long seasons of endurance, you do not need to be pushed into brilliance. You need to be led out of darkness with certainty. Your new season does not begin with running, but with learning how to walk step by steady step. Step by intentional step. Step by step, no longer driven by old fears, you have grown accustomed to change being accompanied by loss. And so, even when something good begins to appear, you remain cautious, like someone who has been burned and no longer dares to place their hand near the fire. I do not fault you for this caution. It is the result of real experiences. But I want you to know that this season does not require you to sacrifice peace in exchange for progress. What I am opening does not ask you to trade yourself away. On the contrary, it will strengthen your identity, clarify your boundaries, and place you in positions where you can stand upright without trembling. If you notice that you are no longer swept along by urgency, that is not delay. It is a sign that you are walking in the right rhythm. In the first steps of this new season, you will notice an important shift. You are no longer ruled by immediate reactions. Before, a single word could steal your sleep. A glance could make you question your worth. Silence could pull you into spirals of speculation. Now, you still feel, but you are no longer carried away. Between stimulus and response, there is a pause. That pause is where I am at work. In that pause, you have the freedom to choose not according to old patterns, but according to the new wisdom forming within you. The revelation of the new season is not a performance. It does not come to prove anything to anyone. It comes to place you rightly for what follows. For this reason, the first signs may be very humble, a small responsibility entrusted to you, an unfinished opportunity, an invitation without a clear shape. Do not despise these beginnings. I often hide large doors behind small ones, because I am watching how you step through, not to judge you, but to ensure that what is greater will not cause you to fall. Your faithfulness in this stage is not measured by how much you accomplish, but by how you keep your heart aligned when no one is watching. You will notice that not everyone walks with you into this new season. Some connections will quietly fade, not because of conflict, but because the rhythm is no longer shared. In the past, this might have frightened you. Now, it will feel more natural. You do not need to sever ties in bitterness, nor cling in fear. When you are in the right place, what does not belong will fall away on its own. I do not do this to isolate you, but to protect you from carrying burdens that were never assigned to you. Your new season requires space, and that space is created through wise release, not escape. In this time, I will begin placing you in situations that require trust more than control. You will not have all the information before you step. You will not see the full outcome before you decide. This is not a test of your courage. It is training for a new level of maturity. I am no longer teaching you how to survive. I am teaching you how to steward. And stewardship requires the ability to act without being consumed by every variable. When you learn to walk in the light sufficient for today, you will find that tomorrow opens on its own. Pay attention to how I am healing your memory. What once caused you to overreact now simply reminds you to be discerning. Lessons once learned through pain now become sources of wisdom. You no longer avoid the past, but you no longer live in it. You carry what is needed and leave behind what has finished its season. This is an essential skill for the stage you are entering. For if you bring the entire old storehouse into the new house, there will be no room for what I am giving. In these first steps, you will notice that I do not rush you forward, but I also do not allow you to stand still. There will be days when guidance feels clear. There will be days when faithfulness looks very small, keeping your word, keeping your rhythm, keeping your heart tender. Do not underestimate those days. They are building within you a stability that high moments cannot create. When the foundation is steady, You will not be shaken when greater things arrive. I know there will be moments when you ask yourself, "Am I imagining this? Is anything really changing?" You ask not because you lack faith, but because you have hoped before and been disappointed. I do not rebuke you for that question. I simply invite you to observe the fruit rather than argue with your feelings. You will see that you respond differently. You will notice that you are no longer drawn back into old cycles. You will find yourself able to say no without guilt. These changes are real. They are quiet, but they are irreversible. This new season will also bring you something precious: freedom and truth. You no longer need to hide in order to be accepted. You can admit limitations without collapsing. You can correct mistakes without self-contempt. You can learn without defensiveness. This freedom makes you light, light enough to love, light enough to serve, light enough to keep moving forward. It is not the product of personal effort, but the fruit of deep healing I have worked in you through previous seasons. Remember this as you continue. You are not called to become a version of yourself that never errs, but a version that no longer runs from truth. When you live in truth, grace has room to operate. When you stand in the right place, support will come on its own. When you move in the right rhythm, the doors meant for you will open without your having to force them. My beloved child, one of the things I do before you can go any farther is to reset the way you stand, not your outward position, but your inner footing, for you may enter a new season with doors opening and opportunities appearing. Yet, if you are still standing on the old ground, the ground of fear, self-doubt, and the need to prove yourself, even good things will become burdens. That is why, before I allow you to move quickly, I teach you to stand firmly. This is the quiet yet decisive work of this stage. You once defined yourself by what you could do, by who stayed or left, by whether you were accepted or not. Those measures kept you living as though you were always awaiting a verdict. When things went well, you felt enough. When things went wrong, you felt lacking. I am removing you from that cycle. Your identity is not suspended on circumstances. It is anchored in what does not change who I have called you to be. When you know you are the child of a king, you will stop living in a posture of begging. You will no longer need to shrink yourself to be kept, nor perform to be seen. You will stand upright without arrogance and without trembling. This repositioning does not happen in a dramatic moment. It comes through very concrete, often very small choices. You choose not to over-explain. You choose not to respond immediately. You choose silence instead of self-defense. You choose to leave conversations that cause your soul to contract. You choose to speak the truth without inflicting harm. Each choice is like a stone being reset in the foundation. No one applauds these moments, yet they are what keep the house of your future from shaking when the wind comes. In this season, you may feel that you are no longer the same. Things that once consumed your attention no longer dominate your mind. Words that once unsettled you no longer carry the same weight. You are not becoming cold, you are developing boundaries. And boundaries are not walls meant to push others away, they are lines that help you discern what may enter and what must stop. I am teaching you to love without losing yourself, to give without emptying yourself, to be present without erasing yourself. In this process, you will face a subtle temptation, returning to old patterns when uncertainty arises. When the new still feels fragile, you may want to cling to what is familiar, even if it once exhausted you. I understand that instinct, but I invite you to pause and recognize it. Familiarity does not always mean safety. Some old cycles give you a sense of control while quietly stealing your future. I do not call you back to places where you had to diminish yourself just to remain. If an old door no longer opens, it is not punishment, it is protection. This re-anchoring of identity directly shapes how you handle conflict. Before, you either avoided it to preserve peace or reacted strongly to defend yourself. Now, you begin to stand in a third place, facing truth with peace. You do not need to win to be right. You do not need to please everyone to feel secure. When you know to whom you belong, you no longer need to compete for space. You already have a place. Pay attention to this when identity is set. Responsibility draws closer, not a crushing responsibility, but one proportionate to your stability. I will entrust you with things that match the firmness you now carry. Sometimes that means I trust you enough to remain silent, to wait, to refrain from reacting. Early season tests are not meant to break you. They confirm that you are standing on new ground. And when you pass them in peace, you will know your footing has truly changed. In this season, I am also healing your relationship with authority. Before, authority frightened you, fear of misuse, fear of control, fear of cost. You either avoided it or distrusted it. But true authority does not oppress, it protects. It does not need a display, it stands on its own. As I place you in new positions, small or large, I will teach you to exercise authority with steady humility. You will learn to say yes and no without apologizing for your maturity. You may find yourself tested in the very areas where you were once weakest, not to expose you, but to show you the difference. What once caused you to collapse now simply causes you to pause and discern. What once sent you into panic now leads you to pray and then move forward. This difference does not come from trying harder. It comes from being rightly positioned. This is a key sign that you are ready to go farther in the new season. I also want to speak to a quiet fear you carry, the fear that if you truly stand firm, you will be isolated. The truth is the opposite. When you stand in the right place, the right people will recognize you. They will not come because you need them, but because they see you clearly. Relationships in the new season will not require performance. They will be built on truth, not on lack, and therefore, they will endure. Remember this as you walk through the early changes. You do not need to go back and prove that you are different. You only need to keep standing. Do not measure your growth by fleeting emotions, but by how quickly you return to peace after being shaken. That is the true measure. My child, when identity is secure and your footing established, the next thing I do is not push you forward by your own strength, but widen the space around you. You no longer walk alone. You begin stepping into intersections where your life meets the lives of others in meaningful ways. This is a subtle yet very real shift. Your influence expands not because you seek it, but because you are ready to carry it without losing yourself. Influence does not come to elevate you. It comes to place you rightly within the larger picture I am painting. In the previous season, you learned to remain with me in silence. In this season, you learn to be present among people while keeping that inner stillness. I do not bring you into new connections to make you busy. I bring you in so you may be useful in the right way. You will notice that encounters begin to carry greater depth. No longer shallow exchanges or relationships built on filling emptiness. You will meet people who carry pieces of the journey. Some open doors. Some confirm what I spoke to you in secret. Some challenge you to grow further. And some are healed simply by your peaceful presence. The connections of the new season are not loud. They do not arrive with grand promises or surface-level appeal. They come through a deep alignment, an alignment of rhythm, of values, of direction. You will find that you no longer need to try to impress. You do not need to present your story in order to be accepted. The truth within you speaks for itself. When you enter a room, you do not carry the pressure to be seen. You carry steadiness. And that very steadiness is what others recognize. This is how I expand your influence, not through display, but through a presence that has been refined. In this season, I will teach you to clearly discern between connections that are appointed and connections that drain you. Not every invitation is an opportunity. Not every attention is something to hold on to. You once confused attention with support. Now, your inner compass has grown more sensitive. You will feel which places help you grow and which make you shrink. You will know when to open your heart and when to keep distance, not out of fear, but out of responsibility for what I have entrusted to you. This discernment does not make you selfish, it makes you faithful. You may find yourself placed into roles you never anticipated, not because you sought position, but because position found you. I am not placing you there to test your capability, but so you may carry light that has been refined through darkness. You have walked valleys deep enough to understand others when they are there. You have endured enough silence to know when to speak and when to simply remain. That experience is what makes you a safe place for others. And when you realize that your influence does not come from eloquent words but from the consistency of your life, you will stop doubting the value of what I have done within you. Yet I also want to speak to you about a challenge that accompanies this expansion, the temptation to return to seeking approval. As influence increases, more voices, more expectations, you may feel drawn to adjust yourself to fit everyone. Remember this, I do not expand your influence to stretch you thin again. I expand it so you learn to stand in the right place without losing your center. You do not need to please everyone to fulfill your purpose. You only need to be faithful to what I have given you. Those who are called to walk with you will understand. Those who do not are not the measure of your rightness. In this season, you will also learn that some connections are meant only for a stage, not for the entire journey. I will give you the wisdom not to overattach to what I have appointed as temporary. This is especially important, because if you try to hold what I have already called you to pass through, you will slow down when I invite you forward. Maturity is not only knowing how to hold on, it is knowing how to release at the right time, not in bitterness, not in regret, but in trust. I am expanding your influence in another way you may not yet recognize: invisible influence. There are people observing you from a distance. There are lives being encouraged by the way you stand firm, even though you have never spoken directly to them. Do not underestimate this. I often use quiet witnesses to sow hope in places you never set foot in. You do not need to know everything for this work to be effective. You only need to live rightly. When your life is consistent, its influence will extend beyond what you can control. Within these new connections, I will teach you how to receive. You have grown accustomed to giving, supporting, listening. But in this season, I want you to learn how to allow others to support you without seeing yourself as weak. Letting others stand beside you does not diminish your authority. It confirms that you were not called to walk alone. The relationships appointed for this season will be mutual. There will be exchange, reinforcement, and true companionship. When you allow this, you step into a new level of maturity, the maturity of community, not only of the individual. Remember, this expansion of influence is not the destination, it is a means for life to flow through you to others, a means for what I have done in secret to become a source for many lives. If you keep this before you, you will not lose your way when things begin to move more quickly. You will know when to advance, when to pause, when to speak, and when to remain silent. Peace will continue to be the sign, my beloved child. As you cross the threshold into the new season, Challenges will no longer come as obvious storms like before. They will not arrive through overt loss, lack, or isolation. The trials of this season are more subtle, lighter, and therefore easier to overlook. They do not come to bring you down. They come to see how you stand when you are no longer being pressed, when blessing begins to flow steadily, when life's rhythm becomes easier to breathe in, when the things you once prayed for slowly appear. Your heart enters a new testing ground. Will you remain upright when you no longer have to fight to survive? In earlier seasons, you learned to cling to me because you had no other option. Pain drove you to prayer. Lack made you seek. Loneliness keeps you near. But when things soften, when stability returns, you are no longer pushed into a corner, and it is within that open space that your freedom is revealed. You can choose to remain close to me, or you can begin living by a new momentum, the momentum of comfort. I do not say this to frighten you, but to teach you a deep truth. Blessing does not corrupt you. How you carry blessing does. There is a quiet temptation when things begin to go well. You stop listening because you feel you are fine. You stop asking because nothing feels urgent. You stop waiting because you have grown accustomed to movement. I do not condemn you for this feeling. I simply invite you to recognize it. Misalignment in a new season rarely begins with one large wrong decision. It begins with very small things, skipping a moment of listening, justifying a choice that is not fully aligned, lowering an inner standard because everyone does it. If you are not watchful, these small things will gradually shape your direction. I am teaching you a new kind of faithfulness. Not faithfulness in pain, you have done that well, but faithfulness in comfort. Faithfulness when no one is watching. Faithfulness when there is no pressure. Faithfulness when you have more choices. This is where true identity is revealed. One who remains upright in seasons of abundance understands that their source is not in what they possess, but in the one they walk with. When you remember the source, you are not carried away by the current. I will show you that decisions which seem harmless are actually very important. The way you speak about others when they are not present. The way you treat those who offer you no benefit. The way you use your newly gained freedom of choice. The way you respond when you are favored. These things are not loud, but they reveal what truly governs your heart. I am not scrutinizing you to find fault. I am training you so you can carry more without losing yourself. You will face another change attention. As your influence grows, as you are trusted more, as your words carry greater weight, eyes will turn toward you. Some will admire you. Some will expect much from you. Some will doubt you. If you are not careful, you may begin to adjust yourself to fit those gazes. I want you to remember this. You are not called to become an image. You are called to become the truth. An image must be protected. The truth stands on its own. When you live for an image, you will grow weary. When you live in truth, you will be free. In this new season, I will not withdraw my protection from you, but I will allow you to make more choices on your own. This is not abandonment. This is trust. I trust you enough to choose what is right when you are not being pressured. I trust you enough to stop when there are no warning signs. I trust you enough to say no to something good that is not aligned with the timing. And when you choose rightly in those moments, I expand the scope of what I entrust to you. You will notice something quite unexpected. Things that once overstimulated you no longer pull you in as they used to. You no longer need drama to feel alive. You begin to value steadiness, consistency, and repeated kindness day after day. This is a sign of deep maturity. Your soul is no longer addicted to highs. It seeks truth, and truth is often quiet. In this season, I am not only concerned with you doing what is right, but with you keeping your heart soft. There is another danger: when blessing increases, you may become hard toward others, thinking they are not mature enough. You may forget that you were once there too. Let the memory of difficult seasons keep your heart humble, not so you return to pain, but so you do not close your heart. When you remember that you were shown mercy, you will show mercy. When you remember that you were lifted up, you will lift others without pride. The subtle challenges of this new season will also appear in how you steward your time and energy. You will have more invitations, more choices, more things that are possible. But not everything that is possible is beneficial. I will teach you to listen to peace as a gatekeeper. When peace leaves, you pause. When peace remains, you move forward. This is a precious skill, because it keeps you from trading what is important for what feels urgent. You may ask yourself, what if I make a mistake? I answer you with the truth. You are no longer in a place where one wrong step destroys everything. You are in a relationship, not an exam. When you stumble, I realign you. When you are tired, I give you rest. When you are confused, I speak more clearly. What I desire is not perfection, but teachability, a heart willing to be corrected without defensiveness. Those who are teachable will go far, because they are not afraid of the light. You have passed through storms to learn how to stand. Now you are learning how to walk in a gentle wind without losing your way. And I am here not to remove every choice from you, but to walk with you through each one. This will make you stronger than any form of coercion ever could. My child, there is a very tender moment in the journey of maturity when what once was lacking begins to be sufficient, when quiet prayers slowly receive their answers, and when your life is no longer tightly bound by daily anxiety. In that moment, I do not ask whether you are happy. Joy is natural, but how you carry that joy. For abundance is not only something that comes to you, it is something you must learn to steward. Otherwise, what was given to serve life can turn around and rule the one who receives it. I do not want that for you. I want you to carry abundance like a keeper of a spring, letting the water flow through, not allowing it to rise and flood. You once lived through seasons where every decision carried the scent of survival. In those days, you held on out of fear of lack. You gave out of guilt, and you received out of fear that, if you did not, you would lose your chance. I do not blame you for those reflexes. They were formed in days when you had to fend for yourself. But this season is different. I am not placing you in abundance to test your heart, but because I know you have matured enough to keep your heart upright amid good things. Stewardship of abundance does not begin with numbers, it begins with motives. From where do you give? Why do you hold back? How do you choose when you are no longer backed into a corner? These questions shape the soul of one who carries blessing. I will teach you a new rhythm, the rhythm of discernment, not spending quickly out of excitement, and not holding tightly out of fear. Discernment helps you know when to invest, when to wait, when to share, and when to preserve. This rhythm is very different from control. Control comes from fear of loss. Discernment comes from trust. When you trust that your source does not run dry, you do not need to make decisions in panic. You can pause, listen, and choose according to peace. I have placed peace as a sign not to slow you down, but to make you precise. Along with abundance, I am also entrusting you with authority, perhaps authority within a small group, within your family, within your work, or within spiritual influence. True authority is not loud. It does not need to impose itself to be recognized. It stands firm because it is right. I allowed you to walk through seasons of not being heard so you would learn how to hear others. I allowed you to endure unjust decisions so you would not reproduce them when you have the power to choose. Therefore, as you begin to have a voice, I want you to use that voice to build up, not to press down. This is the difference between power and authority. Power forces, authority protects. In this season, you may notice that people seek your counsel more often, trust you more, and entrust you with decisions that affect others. This is an honor that carries responsibility. I do not require you to always be right. I require you to always be true, true to your motives, true to your limits, true to what you know and what you do not yet know. When you do not pretend to be all-knowing, I have room to guide you. When you acknowledge your need for wisdom, I will give it at the right time. Those who know how to ask will not lose their way. When you see yourself moving faster than one person and slower than another, you may begin to measure your worth by speed. But I tell you, this speed is not the measure of faithfulness. Some things must be done quickly, others must be done slowly, so that what is fragile is not damaged. I will teach you the rhythm of each task. When you honor that rhythm, you will not exhaust yourself through competition, nor lose your way through envy. You will know when to move forward, when to stay, when to delegate, and when to carry something yourself. Pay attention to how you treat small things when big things have arrived. Some become careless once they feel they have made it. But my child, faithfulness in small things is the anchor that holds you steady when greater things rise. The way you keep your promises, the way you arrive on time, the way you respond to messages that bring you no benefit, the way you behave when no one is watching, these things keep your heart soft. When the heart stays soft, authority does not harden into rigidity. When the heart stays soft, abundance does not distance you from others. In stewarding abundance, I am also teaching you the joy of sufficiency, not the thirst for more. More has no finish line. Sufficiency has peace. When you know what is enough, you are no longer driven by endless desire. You can enjoy what I give without fear of losing it. You can give without feeling drained. You can receive without carrying shame. This is a freedom many do not have, even though they possess much. I want you to have that freedom. You may ask, how do I know if I am stewarding? Well, I give you a simple sign. Do you still have peace when you choose? If you must constantly justify yourself, constantly reassure yourself after every decision, you may have moved faster than my leading. But if you make a choice and your heart remains at rest even though challenges still lie ahead, that is a sign I am within that decision. Peace does not promise that everything will be easy. It promises that you are not walking alone. I want you to learn how to steward attention. As your life begins to carry influence, praise will come. Receive it with gratitude, but do not drink it dry. Praise can encourage, but it must never become your source. Your source remains my presence. When you keep this clear, you will not collapse when praise fades, nor swell when praise increases. You will remain centered in a place of steadiness. There will be times when you must make decisions that do not please everyone. This is part of mature authority. Remember, being liked is not always the same as doing what is right. I am not calling you to become harsh. I am calling you to become truthful. Truthful to what I have entrusted to you, to those I have given you to care for, and to your own soul. When you stand in that truth, I take responsibility for what you cannot control. My beloved child, before I lead you deeper, there is one final work I must do in this season, not to delay you, but to ensure that what I am about to entrust will not be mixed. This work does not take place outwardly, but in a very hidden region of the soul motive. You have learned to stand firm as blessing increases. You have learned to steward abundance and authority. Yet there is a deeper layer that must be refined, so you do not unknowingly carry old desires into new responsibilities. I do not do this to take joy from you. I do it to protect you from inner division. Some motives look good on the surface but are exhausting at the root. The desire to help can be mixed with the need to be needed. Devotion can be mixed with the fear of being replaced. The longing to do what is right can be mixed with the desire to be recognized. These do not make you bad, they simply show that you are human. But if they are not purified, they will gradually pull you out of the rhythm I have set for you. That is why I bring you into a very particular pause where I do not add more tasks. Do not increase speed. Do not open wide doors so that I may touch the reason why you do what you are doing. In this pause, you may feel a mild sense of ambiguity. It is no longer as intense as the hard season, yet not as radiant as harvest time. You may ask yourself, am I moving forward or standing still? I tell you, you are being refined. Fire does not always flare up. Sometimes it holds a steady heat to separate impurities. I am holding that steady heat within you enough to reveal what needs to be realigned, but not enough to frighten you. This is my care, not a meaningless trial. One of the most subtle temptations of this stage is self-satisfaction. Not obvious pride, but the feeling of, I've already been through that. You may begin to loosen your attentiveness, thinking the old lessons are sufficient. But my child, maturity does not mean you are no longer tested. Maturity means you recognize the test earlier. I do not want you living in tense vigilance. I want you living in gentle alertness. Alertness does not exhaust you. It clarifies you. When you are clear, it takes far less effort to stay aligned. You have learned how to give without being depleted. But I want to take you further to give without needing return. There is a very deep point of freedom when you do what is right simply because it is right, not because it will be seen, not because it will be repaid. I am not saying that recognition is wrong. I am saying it must never become the reason. When your motive is purified at this level, you will be able to do very great things in silence without being worn down. That is the strength of one who does not need the spotlight to exist. In this process, I will touch ambitions that have never been named. Not all ambition is bad. Much ambition is the energy of calling. But ambition must be rightly ordered. When ambition stands under my leading, it builds. When it stands above, it devours. I will ask you questions that only you and I know the answers to, if no one sees. Do you still want to do this if you are not acknowledged? Will you still be faithful if you must wait longer? Will your heart remain at rest? These questions are not meant to shame you. They are meant to free you from the drives that make you run. You will also face another challenge of this season, subtle weariness. Not weariness from overload, but weariness from carrying too many roles. As influence expands, you may begin to live fragmented, a piece of you in each place, a different version for each person. I do not want that for you. I want you whole. Wholeness does not mean perfection, it means consistency. Who you are in the hidden place is who you are in the light. When you live this way, your soul can rest even while you are busy. This is a vital part of purification, laying down unnecessary roles so that you may keep yourself. I allow a few final temptations to surface, not so that you would fall, but so that you can see that you have changed. What once shook you now merely makes you pause. What once pulled you now simply passes by. When you recognize this difference, do not become self-satisfied. Give thanks. Gratitude is the best way to close the door to pride. Gratitude keeps your heart soft and open. I do not need you to be perfect to go on. I need you to be humble. You may feel that I am slowing you down just before something greater arrives. That is because I am making a final alignment, like a conductor tuning the instruments before the symphony begins. I adjust the small notes so that when you step into the next movement, you are not off tempo. Do not fear this slowness. It is not regression, it is preparation. You are not losing time, you are saving yourself from loss later. Understand this, the purification of motives does not make you weaker, it makes you lighter. When you are no longer driven by the need to prove yourself, you gain endurance. When you are no longer pulled by the need for recognition, you gain freedom. When you are no longer chasing outcomes, you gain presence. And these are the very things that will enable you to carry greater responsibilities without breaking. You have passed through the subtle tests of this new season not by your own strength, but by your willingness to let me touch the roots. Your motives are being made clean. Your rhythm is being aligned. Your heart is being kept soft. From this foundation, the next depth will open, not as a sprint, but as a steady journey in which every step you take carries life. You do not need to worry about what is coming. What I am preparing for you does not require you to become someone else. It requires you to become fully yourself. And I am here to lead you into that step by step, rhythm by rhythm, season by season. My beloved child, after your motives have been purified and your inner rhythm aligned, I no longer leave you groping in uncertainty as before, not because you understand everything, but because you are now steady enough to recognize my guidance. Purpose is no longer a distant concept you must chase by effort. It begins to take shape as clearer lines within your everyday life. You begin to see that the things you once did in secret, the choices you held when no one was watching, are slowly connecting into a direction. I do not give you a detailed map. I give you clarity sufficient to walk without panic. The greatest difference in this stage is not that you do more, but how you do it. Before, you entered responsibility with tension, afraid of failing, afraid of not being enough, afraid of disappointing. Now, you are invited to enter responsibility from rest, not the rest of passivity, but the rest of one who knows they are not carrying it alone. This rest does not slow you down, it makes you precise. When you act from rest, you are not driven by fear of failure, but led by trust. And it is this trust that keeps you from burning out as responsibility increases. I begin to reveal purpose not through grand declarations, but through very specific assignments someone placed in your path who needs support, a task that seems small yet requires deep faithfulness, a decision that calls you to place the common good above personal convenience. These things do not look great, yet they are precisely how I weave purpose into reality. True purpose is not separate from life, it permeates each choice. As you are faithful in these assignments, you will see that I am expanding your influence in a sustainable way, without pulling you out of a healthy rhythm of living. In this stage, you will learn to distinguish between burden and responsibility. Burden comes from carrying what I did not give you. Responsibility comes from receiving your portion with willingness. I do not call you to carry everything. I call you to carry what is yours. When you carry the right portion, you will find strength rising from places you did not expect. Some things that once exhausted you will now feel lighter, not because there is less to do, but because you are no longer doing them in your own strength. Remember, this rest is not a reward after the work is done. Rest is the foundation for doing the work rightly. As purpose becomes clearer, you may feel a new pressure, the pressure to be worthy. I want you to stop here and hear me clearly. You do not step into purpose because you are worthy. you step into it because I am faithful. If you believe you must be more perfect to be used, you will delay what I am already opening. I did not choose you because you have no cracks. I chose you because you allow me to work through them. Your humility, not your perfection, is what keeps purpose from becoming a burden of self-importance. Do not forget, this purpose is not only what you do, but how you are present. There are places where I position you not so that you speak much, but so that you are there carrying a peace that has been refined. There are spaces that need light not from teaching, but from a consistent life. You will discover that when you simply step into the right rhythm, the atmosphere around you changes. This is part of your new responsibility to carry life by the way you live, not only by what you say. In this transition, I teach you to honor limits. You will not do everything at once. You will not save everyone. You will not fix every misalignment. And that does not make you a failure. It keeps you human. Purpose does not require you to be all-powerful. It asks you to be faithful. When you know when to stop, where to rest, and how to say no to what exceeds what has been entrusted to you, you protect what I am building within you. The sustainability of the journey matters more than momentary impressiveness. Pay attention to a very important sign of this stage: quiet joy. Not the joy of a high, but a deep joy, the joy of one who knows they are in the right place. You no longer need to keep asking, "Am I on the right path?" That question gradually gives way to a quiet assurance: I am being led. When you sense this, trust it. It does not come from fleeting emotion. It comes from long alignment. As purpose becomes clearer, I also guard you from a subtle temptation equating your worth with productivity. You are not what you accomplish. If one day you do less, you are not worth less. If a project fails, your calling is not revoked. I do not call you by daily results. I call you by relationship. Keep this before you, and you will not be pulled into the endless cycle of having to prove yourself. You do well because you are faithful, not because you fear being discarded. I will teach you how to wait and rest when the next thing does not open immediately. Not every part of the purpose is revealed at once. Some segments must be lived before they are understood. When you wait for a rest, you are not impatient. You do not force doors. You trust that when the time comes, I will open, and when I open, you will not need to strain to step through. This is the rhythm of those who go the distance, not rushed, not delayed, simply faithful. You no longer enter what I entrust to you with tense shoulders, but with a straight back and a settled heart. Purpose is no longer the pressure to achieve. It is the path by which you live in alignment with what I placed within you from the beginning. And when you live aligned, even great responsibility does not weigh you down. It puts you in the right place. From this foundation, I will continue to reveal deeper parts, not to add burdens, but to show you that rest and responsibility are not opposites. They support each other. You do not have to choose between working and resting. You are invited to live in a rhythm where both coexist. And in that rhythm, what I have promised will continue to unfold at the right time, in the right way. And enough for you, my beloved. As responsibility expands, pressure often arrives naturally. It does not knock loudly. It slips in through questions that seem reasonable. What if I haven't done enough? What if I miss something important? What if I slow down a beat? Will everything fall apart? Pressure likes to dress itself as responsibility to convince you that the more tense you are, the more faithful you must be. But hear me clearly, pressure is not a sign of calling. Presence is a sign of companionship. When you lose presence, even if you do the right things, you are off rhythm. I do not deny that this season asks more of you, but I do not allow it to take away what is essential. Your presence before me and among people is not an extra to be sacrificed for efficiency. It is the source. When the source is guarded, the flow does not run dry. When the source is neglected, every achievement soon becomes a burden. Therefore, as work increases, I teach you a new discipline, the discipline of rest in motion. Not rest to escape, but rest to recenter the heart. You will learn to work without losing your breath. You will learn to respond without letting words pull you away from truth. You will learn to decide without driving yourself by fear. This does not happen overnight. It comes through very small but faithful practices, pausing before reacting, asking me before agreeing, and allowing silence to cleanse your motives. These pauses do not slow you down. They make you right. And right is always faster than rushed in the long run. In this stage, you may feel two forces pulling in opposite directions, the invitation to move forward and the need to keep peace. Do not see this as a contradiction. I am teaching you to carry both at once. You do not have to choose between progress and peace. Peace is not a brake, it is a compass. When peace remains, you know you are moving in the right direction, even if the steps are difficult. When peace departs, that is not a sign of weakness. It is a signal that alignment is needed. Trust this compass. It has been refined within you across many seasons. Learn to distinguish clearly between entrusted responsibility and self-imposed expectation. Self-imposed expectations usually come from fear of disappointing others or fear of losing value. Entrusted responsibility comes from trust. On the surface, they look similar, but their fruit is very different. Self-imposed expectations drain you. Entrusted responsibility grows you. When you feel depleted, stop and ask, is this truly mine to carry? I will answer with peace or with heaviness. Learn to listen to that answer. I will allow you to face moments when you cannot please everyone. This is an important lesson of rest. If you keep trying to satisfy every side, you will not keep your center. I do not call you to be indifferent. I call you to be clear. Clear about what I have entrusted to you. Clear about limits. Clear about rhythm. When you are clear, you can say no without closing your heart, and say yes without pride. That clarity is a gift of rest. Learn to remain present when pressure rises. Pressure pulls you into the future where assumptions and anxieties multiply. Presence draws you into the present where grace sufficient for today is found. When you stay in the present, you can do what is before you with wholeness. Tomorrow will have its own portion. This is not an avoidance philosophy. It is the way of those who trust. You do not abandon responsibility. You place it in its proper time. You may notice that some old habits need adjustment to protect rest. Daily rhythms, ways of consuming information, conversations that drag on without bringing life, they quietly drain your energy. I am not asking you to cut everything out. I am inviting you to choose wisely. Choosing is not closing off, it is care. When you care for your soul, you care for others better. Rest does not make you selfish, it makes you sustainably useful. As pressure increases, I want you to keep a quiet joy. This joy does not come from immediate results. It comes from knowing that you are walking with me. You may face heavy days while your heart remains light, not because the problems have grown smaller, but because the presence is greater. When you cultivate this quiet joy, you resist the serious temptation of the season of responsibility, equating your worth with performance. You are not your pace. You are the beloved, entrusted with work. I will teach you how to rest even while working. There are very brief moments a deep breath, a whispered prayer, a gentle return of your gaze that are enough to recenter you. Do not underestimate these moments. They are anchors that keep you from drifting. Those who know how to anchor will go far, because they are not carried away by the waves. You do not need long vacations to keep rest. You need faithful presence in short moments. And when pressure causes you to doubt yourself, remember this: I do not entrust you with anything beyond what can be sustained. That capacity is not found only in skill, it is found in relationships. When you are weak, I am strong. When you lack, I am enough. When you do not know, I lead. Rest does not deny weakness. It allows weakness to be placed in the right place. There, weakness becomes a doorway for grace. Pressure may increase, but presence does not have to diminish. Responsibility may expand, but rest can remain. You do not have to choose one or the other. You are invited to live in a rhythm where both coexist, the rhythm of one who works with me, not in my place. From this foundation, you will move forward with greater freedom, the freedom to do hard things without becoming rigid, the freedom to carry responsibility without being drained, the freedom to advance while remaining in peace. And that very freedom will be the sign that you are walking the right path, at the right time, in the rhythm I have set, my child. There comes a point in the journey of maturity when rest is no longer a pause opposed to action, but becomes the way you act. Before, you thought rest was something to reclaim after everything was finished, a late reward for exhaustion. Now, I teach you something deeper. Rest is the source, not the leftover. When rest is placed at the source, every action that flows from it carries life instead of draining the soul. This is the integration I am leading you into, where work is no longer separated from presence. You begin to notice that when you are in the right rhythm, your actions no longer feel heavy, not because responsibility has lessened, but because your motives have settled. You no longer run to prove yourself, no longer work to fill emptiness, no longer strive to be recognized. You act because it is the right thing at this time, with this entrusted portion. And when you act from inner stillness, your energy is not fragmented. You do not need to flip a switch to become a different version of yourself when responsibility calls. You are one consistent in the hidden and the visible, in prayer and in action, in intention and in outcome. Within this integration, you will learn a crucial skill: not rushing toward opportunities that merely look right. When rest governs, you are not driven by surface light. You can look deeper at motive, at rhythm, at consequence. Some doors open at the right time, but not in the right rhythm. Some invitations are attractive, but do not belong to your path. Before, you may have feared missing out. Now, you know that missing what was not entrusted is a form of faithfulness. When you are no longer afraid of missing out, you preserve focus for what is essential. The union of rest and action also changes how you face mistakes. Before, a small error could pull you into cycles of self-accusation. Now, you pause, learn, adjust, and move on without defensiveness, without blame, without drama. This maturity does not make you cold, it makes you resilient. You no longer need perfection to move forward. You need honesty. When you are honest, light has room to correct, and correction happens more quickly. I want you to notice a subtle change, how you experience time. When rest guides action, you stop living in haste. You are no longer obsessed with moving faster than others. You do not punish yourself for slow days. You honor the rhythm of each task, Some days require strong steps, some days require stillness. Both make progress when they are in order. You will find yourself accomplishing more without pushing because energy is no longer leaking into anxiety. In this season, I also integrate your inner life with your life of responsibility. You no longer need to escape from work to meet me. You meet me within the work. A decision made in a brief prayer. A conversation held with attentive listening. A conflict handled in peace. This is not a technique. It is a matured relationship. When a relationship matures, presence is no longer limited by space or schedule. This integration also guards you from a familiar temptation, equating worth with performance. When rest is the source, you are not afraid of days with fewer results. You do not exalt yourself in success, nor diminish yourself in failure. You stand on the foundation of a relationship. From that foundation, you can celebrate without swelling. Take responsibility without collapsing. This is the freedom of one who works with me, not for me. Some will not understand your new rhythm of life. They are accustomed to the image of someone always straining, always busy, always responding. When you step into the rhythm of rest in action, you may appear slower to them, but hear this: slow in the right rhythm is faster than hurried in the wrong one. I do not call you to chase expectations. I call you to be faithful to guidance. Those who need to understand will understand through the fruit of time. Within this integration, you also learn how to end a day without carrying its weight. You do your part. Then you release the rest, not in irresponsibility, but in trust. When you release, sleep becomes an act of faith. You rest not because you have done enough, but because you trust that I am still at work while you rest. This is true rest that works alongside action, not against it. Remember this principle for what lies ahead. Do not separate what I have joined. Do not separate prayer from decision-making. Do not separate peace from responsibility. Do not separate inner life from outward influence. When you keep these together, you will go far without breaking. And when you do break, you will recover quickly because the foundation is not fractured. You no longer live by the cycle of exhaustion and recovery. You are entering a sustainable rhythm, the rhythm of one who knows when to stop, when to move forward, and when to remain when invited. Rest does not make you less effective. It makes you the right person for the work I entrust to you. And when you are the right person, the work, no matter how great, will find its place without costing you yourself. My beloved child, there is a very special moment when what has been sown in quiet begins to rise above the surface. It is not as loud as you once imagined, nor does it necessarily come with cheers. Harvest often arrives as clarity of direction, clarity of values, clarity of fruit. You look back and realize that the years you thought you were standing still were, in fact, quietly accumulating. The small choices, the faithfulness no one saw, the days you kept your heart soft when you had no strength. Everything begins to connect into a visible flow. I do not push you into the light. I let the light come to you at the right time. Your influence becomes more concrete. It is no longer only the ability to touch others for a moment. Now your presence leaves a mark. Some change how they see themselves after being near you. Some find hope again simply because you listened without judgment. Some dare to move forward because they see you have walked through similar things. You do not need to name this influence. It speaks for itself through its fruit. And here I teach you a crucial lesson of the harvest. Do not rush to take credit, not because you have no part, but because if you take the credit, you will have to carry its weight. I want you to receive responsibility, not glory. Glory I will keep. responsibility you will steward. As fruit increases, you may feel a new pressure, the pressure to maintain, to repeat, to meet expectations. Pause and hear this harvest is not sustained by tension, it is preserved by humility. When you are humble, you are not afraid of success because you do not identify yourself with it. You are not afraid of failure because you are not defined by it. You stand in the middle knowing you are a steward, not an owner. The fruit is not your identity. It is the outcome of the relationship you have tended with me across many seasons. In this stage, you will learn to receive praise without drinking it dry. Praise can encourage, but if it becomes your source, it will tilt you. I am not telling you to reject praise. I am teaching you to place it rightly. Receive it with gratitude. Then return it to the source. When you do this, your heart is protected from a subtle swelling, the kind that causes many to fall without realizing they have slipped. Your safety in the harvest lies here. You know what comes from me, and what is merely a reflection of the light. Harvest is not only about receiving, it is also about distributing. Some of what I give you is not for you to keep, but to pass on to the right place, the right person, at the right time. Distribution is not giving everything away, it is giving rightly. When you give rightly, you do not run dry. When you keep right, you do not close in. I will teach you fine discernment when to expand and when to preserve, when to speak and when to be silent. Harvest requires sensitivity, not greater force. As fruit increases, I will also allow comparisons to arise around you. Some will measure you against others, fitting you into frames that are not yours. Do not enter that game. Comparison skews the compass. I do not call you to be the best by others' standards. I call you to be most faithful to your portion. When you stay within your portion, you will have peace even when others move faster. And when you move faster, you will not look down on others, because you know each person has a different rhythm. Harvest also brings a deeper test, keeping your heart soft when things are going well. Many keep a soft heart in lack, but close it in abundance. I do not want that for you. Let the memory of hard seasons make you gentle, not to return you to pain, but to keep you mindful of how you were carried. When you remember, you will show mercy. When you show mercy, your influence will heal rather than wound. I will place you in situations where your fruit is tested by time, not by impression. Some things bloom quickly and fade early. I want your fruit to endure. So do not rush to multiply everything. Let what is ripe reproduce naturally. Sustainability is the language of true harvest. When you honor endurance, you protect what has been entrusted to you. In this season, you will also learn to face criticism without collapsing or counterattacking. As influence grows, many voices will arise. Some criticism is fair and meant to refine, some is unfair and meant to test. You do not need to respond to all of it. Bring everything before me, keep what you need to learn, and let me handle the rest. Those who maintain quietness amid noise will go farther than those who win every argument. Remember this key principle of the harvest: do not try to gather everything at once. Some fruit is meant to remain on the branch for others. Some things I want to continue growing. When you grasp greedily, you will grow weary. When you are wise, you will endure. I am not lacking. I am not in a hurry. Do not hurry either. The rhythm of harvest is the rhythm of sufficiency. Enough light, enough water, enough time. In all of this, I am guarding you from the greatest temptation of the harvest season, losing your dependence. When everything runs smoothly, you may think you have figured out the formula. But there is no formula for life, there is only a relationship. Keep the relationship at the center. When the center is kept, every method finds its proper place. When the center is abandoned, the methods become a burden. A field opens before you, the fruit is ripe. The light is sufficient, and the wind is favorable. You are invited to walk through the harvest, not with loud celebration, but with steady humility. When you bow low, you see clearly. When you see clearly, you harvest rightly. And when you harvest rightly, what I entrust to you will continue to multiply through you without causing you to lose yourself. My beloved child, the harvest does not only test patience, it tests faithfulness over time. Some enter the harvest with a humble heart, but gradually allow the habits of success to dull their sensitivity. I do not say this to warn you with fear, but to keep you alert through love. Faithfulness in the harvest is not about doing more, it is about keeping the right center when everything is going well. That center does not change relationship, listening, and obedience in each small step. In this season, you will see many things begin to run on their own. Processes you once had to strain to maintain now flow smoothly. Doors you once knocked on now open by themselves. And right there, a subtle temptation appears. You stop asking not because you resist, but because you have grown accustomed to the flow, accustomed to the pace, accustomed to things happening as expected. I invite you to keep a very simple, yet very deep habit. Ask again about what seems obvious. Ask not to slow down, but to stay aligned. Ask not out of doubt, but out of faithfulness. There is a significant difference between skill and guidance. Skill can be repeated. Guidance is always fresh. I do not deny the skills I have given you. They are the fruit of many seasons of formation. But do not let skill take the place of listening. When you act only from skill, you may achieve results without life. When you act from guidance, the results may come more slowly, but their fruit endures. I want your fruit to endure. In the harvest season, you will face another challenge, holy busyness. This busyness looks right, many good works, many needs, many reasonable invitations, yet busyness can still leave you empty if it is not arranged according to my rhythm. Long-term faithfulness requires you to say no to good things in order to keep what is right. This does not make you less passionate. It preserves your passion from burning out. You are not called to meet every need. You are called to meet the portion I entrust to you. Do not trade the hidden place for expansion. As influence increases, the hidden life is easily compressed. Yet it is the hidden life that sustains the harvest. If you shorten the hidden place to make more room for public work, you will soon feel dry, even while everything looks full. Guarding the hidden place is not selfish. It is responsibility toward the source. Those who guard the source preserve the flow. In this stage, you may feel pressure to maintain standards of image, performance, and expectations. I remind you, my standard is honesty. Honesty about motives, honesty about limits, honesty about rhythm. When you are honest, you allow adjustment to happen early. Early adjustment saves you from major correction later. The faithful person is not the one who never errs, but the one who is easily corrected. I want you to keep another habit of sustainable harvest, celebrating rightly. Celebration is not for display, it is for remembering the source. When you celebrate, mark it with gratitude, with learning, and with the next responsibility. Celebration keeps you from taking success for granted, but celebration done wrongly will cause you to stop. So celebrate. Then move on gently, without haste. In the harvest season, you will also meet people who want to take shortcuts by leaning on your success. They may offer faster paths, easier deals, and immediate benefits. Long-term faithfulness requires you to look at consequences, not only opportunities. I will give you wisdom to discern what is true multiplication and what is dilution. True multiplication preserves essence. Dilution loses fragrance. You are called to preserve the fragrance. At times, you may feel tired not because the work is heavy, but because of emotional responsibility. As influence grows, the stories of others will come to you more often. Remember this: you are not meant to carry everything. You are meant to point the way. You listen. You empathize. You intercede. But you do not replace me. When you keep this healthy boundary, you protect your heart and still serve fully. Faithfulness does not require you to sacrifice your soul to save another's. I will allow you to face periods when no new fruit seems to appear. Even though you remain faithful, do not panic. Harvest also has its rhythms. There is a time to gather, a time to organize, and a time to rest so the land can recover. Long-term faithfulness trusts the cycle and does not panic over quiet spaces. When you honor the cycle, you do not force unripe fruit. And when the fruit ripens, you will harvest with fuller joy. Do not let noise replace guidance. Noise may come as praise, criticism, numbers, forecasts, or comparisons. Guidance is often gentle. To hear it, you must preserve quiet. Quiet does not put you behind. It puts you ahead of wrong decisions. Those who listen well amid noise lead better than those who speak the loudest. I am preparing you for the final transition of this journey, not by adding weight, but by making you lighter. Lighter from the need to prove. Lighter from the fear of loss. Lighter from meaningless busyness. When you are light, you move quickly without haste. You go far without fatigue. Long-term faithfulness is learning how to remain light while carrying much. The harvest will not pull you away from the center if you choose faithfulness over time. Success will not blur guidance if you keep the habit of asking again. Influence will not inflate you if you guard the hidden place. And when you keep these things, the final transition will arrive gently, not as a reckless leap, but as the natural continuation of a life already aligned. My beloved child, there is a very special moment in the harvest that few recognize, the moment when you are no longer harvesting only for the present, but begin sowing for the future even as you reap. This is not a contradiction, it is maturity. When you were younger, you harvested to make up for years of lack. When you mature, you harvest with vision, knowing how to set aside seed for seasons yet to come. I am bringing you to this very moment where your hands are full, yet your heart remains open. At this point, you are no longer driven by the feeling of finally, it's my turn. Bitterness has been healed enough that it no longer mingles with joy. You do not need to prove that the years of waiting were worth it. Your life itself has answered that question. And because you no longer use the harvest to validate yourself, I can trust you with deeper responsibility, the responsibility to ensure that what I do through you is not only radiant, but enduring. I want you to notice a subtle shift happening within you. Before, you rejoiced at seeing results. Now, you rejoice at seeing the flow. You no longer cling to individual achievements. You begin to see the whole picture. This is vital, because those who focus only on achievements grow weary when achievements decrease. Those who see the flow remain steady when the rhythm changes. I am teaching you to live by the flow of purpose, not by the peaks of results. At this stage, I also place you at the intersection of seasons. You are still harvesting, yet you already sense the movements of the next season. Some things that once worked well now need adjustment. Some methods that once fit now feel tight. Do not panic. This is not a sign that you have done wrong. It is a sign that you have come far enough. When old garments begin to feel tight, it is not a rebuke, it is an invitation to change garments. I do not call you to deny what has been, I call you not to be confined by it. At this intersection, I will test your heart with a very quiet question. Are you willing to release a portion of your success in order to obey where I am leading next? Not because that success is wrong, but because it is no longer the best form for the coming stage. Many fall here not because they fail, but because they cannot leave what once worked. You have been prepared not to be trapped in this way. You have learned not to define yourself by form. And so when I say, it is enough, you are able to let go without fearing the loss of yourself. Understand this: preparation for the final step of the journey does not come from doing more, but from becoming more refined. Refined in how you choose, refined in how you speak, refined in how you are present. You will find yourself speaking less, but with greater accuracy, doing less, but with greater precision, being closer, yet without intrusion. This is the final refinement of the harvest season, removing what is excessive to preserve what is essential. When the core is clear, you are no longer distracted by secondary invitations. In this stage, I teach you how to steward legacy, not legacy as reputation, but legacy as life passed on. What I have done to you does not end with you, but legacy is not built by holding on. It is built by entrusting to the right people. You will begin to recognize those I am preparing around you, not to replicate you, but to continue their own portion. Do not try to create copies, create space for identity. When you do this, legacy will live without being dependent on you. You may feel a very gentle sadness, not sadness from loss, but from transition. Every time you move into a new stage, something familiar must be lovingly released. Do not suppress this feeling. It is a sign that you have honored the journey, but do not let it hold you back. I am not calling you to return, I am calling you to go deeper. And going deeper always requires the courage to let things become simpler, not more complex. I will allow you to face one final test of the harvest season, being seen without being drawn into image. When others begin to tell your story, you may be tempted to edit it so it looks better. Let the story be true. Truth does not need embellishment. When you allow your story to remain as it is, with grace, with cracks, with faithfulness, you protect your soul and offer others a place to anchor real hope. At the meeting point of seasons, I also invite you back to original simplicity, not to repeat the past, but to preserve the right spirit. Simplicity is not a lack of depth, simplicity is freedom from mixture. When you do what you are called to do with a simple heart, you are not entangled by secondary motives. Close here, not with drums, but with stillness. The stillness of one who has passed through many seasons without losing themselves. The stillness of one standing between a harvested field and a road about to open. You no longer need to run, you only need to walk in rhythm. And that rhythm has already been firmly set within you. Carry this as you step into the final part. The harvest is not the ultimate summit, it is a turning point. From here, what I do will not only bear fruit, it will shape direction. And you are ready for this, not because you are strong, but because you have been made gentle enough to carry something great without breaking it. My child, there is a kind of completion that does not come through an ending, but through a deep settling. It does not resemble a curtain closing after a long journey. nor the feeling that everything is finally finished. The completion I am leading you into is far more subtle. It is when your soul no longer runs to become, because it is resting within what it has been called to be. This is the threshold of the final part, not an ending, but a handing over. You may sense that you no longer hunger to expand as before, no longer feel the urge to prove or conquer. This is not because the fire has gone out, but because the fire has been formed. When fire is young, it flares upward to assert its presence. When fire matures, it burns steadily to warm and to light the way. I have not taken your passion from you, I have placed it into order. And within that order, you begin to understand that what I have done for you is not meant for you alone. The completion of this season is bound to a very important movement from possession to entrustment. Before, you held tightly to what I gave because you had known lack. Now, you hold lightly not because you devalue it, but because you trust. You know that what comes from me is not lost when it is rightly given. You also know that if you keep what needs to be passed on, it will slowly lose its life. And so I invite you into a new role, not only one who lives in their calling, but one who opens the way for others to live in theirs. In this season, you will realize that your voice carries a different kind of weight, not because it is louder, but because it has been tested by time. When you speak now, you do not speak from theory, you speak from a journey. And because you no longer need to persuade, your words carry persuasion. This is one of the clearest signs of completion. You no longer need to defend truth with pressure. Truth stands on its own through you. I want you to understand that completion does not mean you know everything. On the contrary, it comes with a deeper humility. You know you have come far, yet you also know there is much that is greater than you. This humility does not make you smaller, it keeps you open. And the one who remains open continues to be led. Even in the final stage, you do not enter the ending with a posture of closure, but with a posture of entrustment, entrusting control, entrusting expectations, entrusting pace back to me. A very important part of this final stretch is reconciliation with the journey itself. You no longer feel the need to rewrite the story with "if only." You look back at the seasons of misalignment, the imperfect choices, the detours, and you do not condemn yourself. You see how I have used even what was unfinished or unrefined to shape a real life. This reconciliation frees you from the past, not through forgetting, but through meaning. When the past is given meaning, it no longer has power to bind. In completion, do not hold what I intend to be given away. There are experiences, insights, and lessons that, if kept only within you, will slowly become heavy. But when you offer them in love, they become life for others and lightness for you. To give is not to lecture. To give is to be present. At times you give through words. At times you give through the way you live. At times you give by stepping back so another may step forward. Every way of giving is precious when it flows from freedom. You will also realize that the final part of the journey places less emphasis on what you do and more on who you become for others. Your presence becomes a place where people feel seen, safe, and encouraged to live truthfully. This is not a skill, it is the result of a life that has been aligned over time. Others do not need to know your whole story. They sense the atmosphere of truth through you. Prepare your heart for a beautiful but quiet reality continuation without you at the center. There are things I will continue to do through others while you stand to the side. This does not mean you are replaced. It confirms that you have completed your portion faithfully. The one who has not completed fears being forgotten. The one who has completed is at peace to step back at the right time. And in that stepping back, you do not lose your place. You keep your peace. I am not saying you will stop acting. I am saying your actions will carry fewer traces of self. You do not need to be present for everything to have value. You do not need to be named for what you sow to have life. This is a very deep freedom, the freedom of one who does not need to be seen in order to know they are present. And this freedom only comes when the soul has settled into what it is called to be. Let what I have done for you settle into identity, not just memory. When you live from that identity, you no longer need to strive to get back on track. You are already there. And from that place, transmission happens naturally, not as an assignment, but as breath. You have walked a long journey from survival to rest, from harvest to entrustment. This final part does not require you to run further. It invites you to stand firm and open your hands. Open your hands so what I have placed within you may flow in the right direction. Open your hands so what no longer needs to be carried can be released. Open your hands for the next step, not yours, but the step of those I will touch through you to take shape. And I am here not as the one who pushes you forward, but as the one who stands with you in this completion, ensuring that what I began, I also know how to finish fully, gently, and full of life. My beloved child, let me speak to you about entrustment. It does not begin with instruction, it begins with release. Releasing control, releasing the need to see immediate results, releasing even the desire to be recognized as the source of the good that is unfolding. I know this is not easy, because you have lived many years in a posture of holding on so you would not lose, holding on so you would not collapse, holding on so you would not be left behind. But now you are entering a different stage, a stage where holding tightly is no longer a sign of faithfulness, but can become a barrier to life continuing to flow. Entrustment is not a mechanical transfer of responsibility, nor is it a withdrawal born of exhaustion. It is a very conscious act, recognizing the right moment to step back so that another may step into their rightful portion. Entrustment does not take your role away, it places it in its proper position. You do not disappear, you change position. And that change preserves freedom for both you and others. In this stage, you will learn to become a support rather than the center. A support does not draw all eyes. A support keeps the structure standing. Others may not mention your name, yet they stand more securely because you were there. This is a very deep form of service, because it does not feed the ego, it feeds life. And only those who have completed a long stretch of the journey can serve in this way without feeling diminished. When you release control, old fears will speak. They will whisper that if you do not hold things together, everything will go wrong. If you do not intervene, others will fail. If you do not stand at the forefront, you will become unnecessary. Do not argue with these voices. Look at them clearly and recognize them for what they are, echoes from seasons when you had to save yourself. I do not blame you for their presence. I simply invite you not to let them decide. You are no longer in a place where you must rescue yourself. You are within a network that I sustain. Releasing control does not mean releasing responsibility. Your responsibility in this stage is to hold a safe space for others to grow. That space is not created through criticism, nor through excessive protection. It is created through calm presence, clear boundaries, and trust that I am at work with others as I have been at work with you. When you trust this, you do not need to grip tightly. You can stand near without dominating. Practical entrustment often happens through very small actions. You choose to listen instead of answering immediately. You ask questions instead of offering solutions. You allow others to try and fail without rushing to correct. You share experience without imposing conclusions. These things are not loud, but they are liberating. Those who receive entrustment do not feel weighed down by your shadow. They feel encouraged to find their own voice. And when they find that voice, you do not feel replaced. You see the journey continuing. Do not replace another person's relationship with me by becoming their anchor. You can support, but you are not the source. You can walk alongside, but you are not the destination. When you hold this boundary, you protect your inner freedom. You are not pulled into solving every problem. You do not carry the weight of choices that are not yours, and you still love fully. In the process of entrustment, you may see others move in directions different from what you once imagined. This may confuse you. Remember, entrustment is not replication. I do not create copies. I form identities. What I have done in you has one shape. What I do in others has another. Your faithfulness is not measured by how much they resemble you, but by how truthfully they live their own portion. When you rejoice in that difference, you step into deeper freedom. I will also teach you how to release without becoming distant. There is a kind of release that avoids responsibility. I am not calling you to that. I am calling you to release while remaining connected, still caring, still present, but no longer controlling. This requires keeping your heart soft without becoming entangled, keeping distance without closing off. When you do this, you become a picture of maturity, steady but not rigid, close but not invasive. You may feel a gentle emptiness, not emptiness from loss, but emptiness from having released a former role. Do not rush to fill that space. Let it remain. Emptiness is space for me to breathe in what is next. If you hurry to fill it, you will miss the next leading. The one who can wait within the empty space is the one who truly trusts that life does not depend on always having something to do. Understand that your inner freedom in this season does not come from having no responsibilities, but from responsibilities no longer defining you. You act because you are entrusted, not because you need to prove yourself. You are present because you love, not because you fear being forgotten. And when you live this way, you can be close to many people without being pulled away from your center. Your center remains where it has been set in a living relationship with me. You stand firm, hands open, heart at rest. What needed to be given has been given. What needed to be kept has been kept in its rightful place. You are no longer torn between holding on and letting go, because you have learned that letting go rightly is also a way of keeping life moving forward, keeping freedom preserved, keeping the journey from ending with you. My beloved child, there will come a very quiet moment, not because every question has been answered, but because your soul is no longer driven by them. You no longer need to ask where you are on the journey, whether you are moving fast or slow, whether you are doing right or wrong in someone else's eyes. You stand here, in this present moment, and that is enough, not because you have reached a peak, but because you have come home. This is the abiding I desire for you, not as a reward, but as a way of living. Abiding does not mean standing still. It means walking without being pulled by the fear of missing out, pulled by memories of seasons of lack, pulled by the need to prove that your journey has meaning. Your living, loving, faithfulness, and remaining are already meaningful enough. When you understand this, you move forward with light hands and an open heart, without strain, without defense, without needing armor. In this moment, I want you to hear clearly what I say, not as a command, but as an affirmation. You have done enough. Not enough by the standards of perfection, but enough by the standards of faithfulness. You stayed when it was easier to leave. You chose truth when pretense was easier. You kept your heart soft when you had every reason to close it. Those choices have shaped you into someone who can carry life without harming it. I do not need you to redo the journey. I invite you to live from what has already been formed. You may look back and see detours, stumbles, incomplete decisions. But now those things no longer bring you shame. They stand quietly in memory, like milestones, not to pull you back, but to remind you that you passed through. You no longer need to erase the past to move forward. You have reconciled with it. And when you reconcile, the past no longer defines the future. It only deepens the wisdom within you. From this place of abiding, you will find that seeking is no longer your primary drive. You do not seek in order to become. You live because you already are. What comes in the future will not arrive to fill a void, but to resonate with what is already established. When you step into new things, you are not swept away. You carry your center with you. And because you carry your center, the new will not lead you astray. Understand that the ending of this journey does not close movement, it closes unrest. You will still learn, still change, still pass through other seasons, but you will no longer live in a state of having to become someone to be accepted. You are free to become day by day without pressure, without fear. This is a very deep freedom, the freedom of one who abides in love and needs no further proof. In the days ahead, you will notice that your presence naturally becomes a blessing to others, not because you try to bless, but because you no longer harm through your own insecurity. You listen without fixing. You love without controlling. You speak truth without pushing. You are silent without abandoning. These things do not need recognition. They work quietly like yeast in dough, like roots beneath the soil. And it is this quietness that makes the blessing endure. I bless you not by promising that everything will be easy, but by assuring you that you will not walk alone. When you are tired, abiding will carry you. When you rejoice, abiding will keep you humble. When you are confused, abiding will remind you to stop and listen. You do not need to return to the starting point to find me. I am here where you stand. In every step you take, there may be those who do not understand your choices, your rhythm, or your quietness. Let them walk their own path. You are not called to explain abiding, you are called to live it. Time will do the rest. Truth does not need to be defended by words. It is preserved by the steadiness of a life. I want to speak to you about the future, not to sketch details, but to settle your heart in peace. What is coming is not meant to test whether you are enough. It comes because you are steady enough to carry it. You do not need to prepare through worry. Every preparation needed has already been accomplished through the seasons you have walked. Trust that when you step, the ground will open. When you speak, words will be given. When you stop, stillness will not cause you to lose your way. And if there are moments when you forget that you are abiding, if you are pulled back into old rhythms, if you feel yourself tensing again, remember this: abiding is not something you lose forever because of a hard day. You can return not by striving, but by truth. Simply acknowledge, stop, breathe deeply, and remain. I do not leave you in those moments. I wait for you with gentle patience. This is the blessing I speak over you as this journey closes. May you walk lightly, yet not superficially. May you love deeply, yet not lose yourself. May you remain faithful over time, yet not grow weary. May you abide in what has been set in place, and let it flow in the right rhythm, to the right people, in the right season. You do not need to carry this whole story with you as you go forward. Let it settle into life. As you live, the story will tell itself. As you are present, meaning will reveal itself. And as you walk in abiding, you will know not by reasoning, but by peace, that what I began, I have led you to where you needed to be. The journey closes here not with a period, but with a life opening outward. You are ready, not because fear is gone, but because fear no longer leads. You move forward no longer searching because you are already within what you were seeking, and I am with you. Today, tomorrow, and in every season to come. Thank you for listening to today's message. Please subscribe and turn on notifications so we can continue receiving living words together, building a firm faith, and walking in the boundless love of God. Amen.